Hello everybody, this is Albert with Green Tea House. I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to talk about what do you do with all those used wet tea leaves. Now before we begin, I highly recommend you check out our back catalog of episodes, in particular the Fundamentals of Tea playlist, as well as other episodes, and of course check out the website that has all of our teas. Now, if you love loose leaf tea, you've probably had this dilemma of the tea leaves. Now, before we go any further, when you drink from loose leaf tea, the number one fundamental rule is don't throw out your tea leaves. I think a lot of us have this old paradigm from growing up using the tea packets that you use them once, you throw them out. And look, let's be honest, most of the tea that comes in tea packets or tea sachets are low quality tea that you wouldn't want to re-steep because you wouldn't be able to get anything out of it, and it's just low-grade fannings or sawdust of tea. But the number one thing is to throw out that kind of paradigm. When it comes to loose leaf teas, yes, you re-steep. Yes. And part of me, if I was a savvy businessman, I would tell you, no, just use it one time and throw it out, then you'll go through the product more. But no, that's disingenuous. Loose leaf tea is just higher quality tea. It's the actual tea leaves from the Camellia sinensis plant. It's not chopped up and CTC'd like a lot of the conventional teas that you find in iced tea or just black tea from English tea or whatever. So since it's just the actual leaves, you can definitely re-steep them. And we talk about here on the episode about steeping your leaves, you should steep them several times. One session of a tea leaf, like a teaspoon of whatever tea you're drinking, whether it be oolong or Essentia or Earl Grey, whatever it is, that's one session. So using that serving would be a session. Now, how many steeps you got out of a session is really ultimately up to you and how long you are steeping it. We customer would tell you steep 3 times each session for 3 minutes. That's a good uniform rule of thumb on steeping. Some people would tell you to steep longer, 4 minutes for one. Some would tell you to maybe do shorter, especially on the Japanese green teas, like the Gyokuro and Sencha and Hojichas. They would tell you maybe just steep for a minute or even 2 minutes, but certainly re-steep. And I would tell you in the Japanese teas, like in the Gyokuros and the Senchas, you could steep maybe the first steepage for 90 seconds, and then you can re-steep those guys like 5 times. You can re-steep them a lot in that one session. But a good rule of thumb is 3 minutes for 3 times. Okay, so now after you've steeped it, let's say 3-4 times, you've milked out all the potency of those leaves, what do you do with them? Well, look, some people, and certainly you can find these people online, they'll use like green tea leaves and turn them into some sort of like makeup or something for eye wrinkles. You see a lot of things out there where they use green tea leaves and blend them into some carrier like coconut oil and do something with that. We're really not going to talk about that. That's neither here nor there. That's more just that kind of female makeup stuff. But you will have a lot of tea leaves. I'll tell you what I do with my green tea leaves, or my tea leaves in general, because I probably drink about 15 cups of tea throughout the day. The majority of that's in the morning, and I do a variety. So in the morning, normally I'll start with a pu'er or Hojicha, because both of those taste more like coffee-ish. Even though Hojicha doesn't really have a lot of caffeine, pu'er, you do definitely feel that theanine steadied kick. And if you don't know what I'm talking about on that, I'll try to remember to put it up here in the banner notes about how caffeine affects us in tea. And then I'll go to, if I start with the dark, like a pu'er, then I'll go to a green, a lighter tea for the second session. And then I'll probably go like an oolong or something in the middle of the third. So that's going to be 9 cups right there. And then typically in the afternoon, I'll drink something else, and then I'll drink an herbal at night. So I'm drinking a lot of tea leaves. And so I'll have a pile of these wet tea leaves. What do I do with them? Normally, I will put them in a canister and put it in the refrigerator. Not because I use it a lot or I'm going to use it for something else. It's just I have a compost bin case, and I have a compost bin. And let me tell you, it fills up very fast if you're just pouring tea leaves in there. And we put banana peels and eggshells and all these things because we do have a compost bin outside. I typically will put the tea leaves in a glass container in the refrigerator just so it doesn't decompose as quickly. And then eventually when it fills up, I'll toss it in the compost bin. What can you do with your tea leaves? well, you could just throw them away in your trash. That's not a problem. What I would tell you not to do is, like if you use a Kyushu or some sort of kettle, I wouldn't just toss all those leaves down the garbage disposal, because it can eventually clog it, especially if you're not running it that often. So what I would do is throw it in the trash or compost and use it as a compost bin. Now you might not have a compost bin, but you know what? You might have a garden, you might have potting soil, you might have plants in your house. Then use those tea leaves and eventually put them in the potting soil, put them in your garden. Use it to good use, because tea leaves are great as a natural fertilizer. They're absolutely great. Now going back to tea leaves. So one session, I would say, is 3 steepages, maybe 4. That window of steeping, I would say, is probably no more than 6 hours. So let's say you're drinking, probably one of my favorite teas here would be the Magnolia Oolong. Let's say you do the first cup from the dry leaves at 8 in the morning. And then you have a kettle, and so you drink that first cup, then you pour in hot water into your Kyushu, wait 3 minutes, then you pour it out into a cup, drink that second cup. And let's say you are leaving or whatever, and these tea leaves are still good. What I would do is put them in the refrigerator, because they won't get bad as quickly. And then I'd say within a 6-hour window, you could re-steep those leaves. I would tell you probably from 9 hours more, even if you've refrigerated these tea leaves, I probably would not re-steep them. Even though the chances of mold growth is relatively slim in this window. It's almost like the worry of salmonella on eggs. You eat raw eggs, you get salmonella. The chances are very minimal, but there is a chance. So I would tell you, once you get those leaves wet with the initial steepage, I would tell you, try to get as many steepages out of that tea, those leaves, probably within a 6-hour window. And then after that, dispose of it. Ideally, I would tell you dispose of it in a compost. If you don't have a compost, I'd probably tell you put it into some soil, because you're probably growing something somewhere in your house, because it's good for your soil. Or worst case scenario, just throw it in the trash. But there are good usages for those tea leaves. The main one being use it for compost. Guys, post in the comments. I'd like to hear from you. Until next time, take care. God bless.